Humanianity, a new religious call. Humanity, religion for us all. Humanity, now we all can see. Humanity, how much better we can be.
Hi, I'm Bill Van Fleet, and this is Humanianity Conversation number 89, recorded on December 16th, 2020. It is the 46th recorded conversation with my friend Mike. In this discussion, we discovered a very fundamental linguistic problem, a rather drastically different concept of the meaning of belief. We continue to have some basic disagreements with regard to our worldviews, and we will need to work more on the belief concept in order to work through those worldview problems. We also worked some on our communication problems during the discussion.
I thought about, so the end of the conversation we had last time was that we were recognizing that some of our thinking on the matters that we've been discussing is, or the process of reasoning is similar, but we're starting from different axioms. And we were going to review and discuss what those axioms were. And this past week, I thought about that because during the last conversation, I really wasn't able to articulate what my axioms were in my thinking. But I did give that some thought, and I sent you the text, and I can now articulate what I believe my axioms are. So do you want to continue to talk about the same thing or
Sure.
something different? Okay. You want to start, or how would you like to start that?
Well, maybe it would be helpful if you put into words your axiom or axioms, and also attempted to say mine, and then I could check and see if I understood what you said about yours and if I thought your depiction of mine was accurate.
Okay. Yeah. So what I understand, I think you have a couple of axioms. You have a few axioms, and some of them overlap mine. But the salient axiom that I was questioning was the axiom that something we would call reality outside of our subjective experience exists. That I think is an axiom that I think you hold. And the two axioms that I hold is that the qualia, my sensory experiences, my thoughts, my feelings, my motivational states, they all exist axiomatically. And the other axiom that I hold is that, for lack of a better word, that which is experiencing that qualia, me, exists. So those are the two axioms in my thinking. I think I think when we flush this out, I think that you would agree with the two axioms that I hold. I think you might hold you hold the same ones. What the issue is, I don't necessarily consider the inclusion of the third axiom, which is that you would hold that there's something called reality outside of subjective experience exists, or can. So I think that's one area of difference that we have. But those are my two axioms.
Okay, to reduce ambiguity, are we in agreement that we are meaning the same thing by subjective experience and qualia?
Well, I think so. What do you mean by it?
Well, what what I would mean by it, I would have to put it in a third set of words. You listed things that are within or a part of subjective experience. You listed those. What you're perceiving, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, your motivational states, and so on. So, so if it will help if we don't have, if we're not using two words to mean exactly the same thing, because using two words would certainly lead most people to assume that we were talking about two different things. So,
Yeah. So if you want to use, if you want to use subjective experience, yeah, I could. We've been using that. So, yeah, I think that's fair. Qualia and subjective experience, I think in the area which we're talking about are identical.
yeah.
So we can use just the two subjective experience.
Okay, and the advantage to subjective experience is it has more meaning to somebody who has never heard of qualia.
Right.
Okay. A second thing that now subjective experience I used in my mind-body problem book, available free on the website humanianity.com under philosophy, to put in my usual plug. And I made the point that I was using two words for a particular entity or phenomenon as if like it was one word. In other words, there is nothing in my in my way of thinking or word usage in the mind-body problem book along the lines of objective experience. There is no meaning to that term. So subjective experience is just a couple of words that are designed to evoke in the listener pretty much what I am meaning. Okay. So now so indeed, I do believe that there's a lot going on other than just that which is in my subjective experience. I don't see myself as just my subjective experience as being all that there is. And so now I gather that you do not agree with that. Well, let's say this, that what you're saying is whether that is so or not is indeterminable. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the existence of anything, in a sense, yes, the existence, I claim, the existence of anything that is not axiomatic requires belief.
Okay, so I do detect that we are using the term belief probably a little bit differently because belief is a part of my axiomatic model of or worldview. And what it is connected to actually would be what has been clarified in the objective model using the term subjective model and objective model from my book. But what that basically means is that what we have learned as a species is much, much more than what we can just see and feel and so forth. And that, so there's a, that if we, that, that we and other animals learn things about the world, mostly what's external rather than inside the body, and our behavior is governed by that, is influenced strongly by that. In other words, anything that we do because there is a predicted outcome of what we're going to do. Now, I'm not talking about reflex behavior. I'm talking about learned type of behavior, what is referred to as learned type of behavior. So we come to expect or believe that such and such will happen under such and such circumstances. You believed that turning the cap in the direction you turned it would cause the cap to come off the bottle. And that belief was totally outside of awareness, was unconscious, but was operative. But we also put beliefs into words, and we also can be conscious of our beliefs. We can think, well, now, if I do such and such, then so-and-so is likely to happen, but maybe not, and so on. And we, our beliefs extend even to things that do not seem to have a lot of verifiability, like whether or not there is an entity watching us, you know, and stuff like that. So, okay. So I am using belief in that sense, but belief in that sense, belief with that meaning comes about already from my belief that there's stuff going on that I don't perceive or know anything about. So that's one of the, and I don't, when you use the word belief, I'm not entirely sure that you mean exactly the same thing.
I think that I want you to talk a little bit more about my belief arises from, say that again. I think you said the belief that I have kind of automatically arises from a belief in something outside my subjective experience. Could you say that part again? I didn't get that part. I didn't quite follow that.
I'm not entirely sure what part, but let me say this, that that I do not believe that I'm alone in the world, and I don't believe that I know everything that exists, but that there's a lot that exists and a lot that's going on that I have no knowledge about and will never have any knowledge about. But I also do acquire knowledge or belief. And that is primarily through our experience, like we do stuff and we learn what happens when we do it. And ultimately, we also learn, after we put our beliefs into words, we learn additional beliefs from other people.
Well, it's all right. So maybe the lack of clarity that I have, the lack of understanding that I have in detail about your position will come out if we talk a little bit more about this, because it seems like there's a difference. So let's take a look and examine if there's a difference between believing in an axiom and believing in, you know, twisting the cap is going to take the cup off. Can you believe, or and can you not believe? I guess if you can believe in something, you can deny it as well. Is it possible for you to deny an axiom? Is it possible for me to deny that that I have subjective experience? I don't think that's possible. That's why it's an axiom. That's the way I'm using the word axiom.
Yeah, okay. Well,
that, right?
I would agree with, well, no, there is going to be, there is a problem in that you look like you're having, that you're kind of
my
sleeping.
Eyes, I don't know what's wrong with my eyes. The past few days, no matter what I do, they always hurt.
Oh.
My glasses are on, they hurt. They're off, they hurt. They're
Oh.
doing this twitching thing. I don't know what's wrong. So please, if you can, it might be hard. Please ignore me when I keep doing this.
Okay,
I'm still listening.
Yeah, okay. I thought I have had the experience of people getting sleepy when I talk. Partly, I think because talking is slow. But
yeah, that's not that.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry to hear that, and maybe to get
thank you.
Out.
To get checked out.
Okay, so you were asking the question, can you deny an axiom? Is that
right?
Well, denying, I think.
Well, denying's the wrong word.
Okay.
Because I think, of course you can deny it. That's really not the right word. I can certainly say something that, like, my subjective experience doesn't exist. But then it's not an axiom. So what I'm really asking is not if you can deny a subjective experience. I'm asking, can you deny an axiom? If you can deny an axiom, then it's not an axiom.
Well, again,
right?
No, well, you can, it depends on what you mean by deny. If you mean put into words the statement that you believe the opposite of what your axiom is, yes, you can do that. People can lie.
But then they could lie, but then it's not an axiom anymore. I think by definition, I would claim an axiom is something that is granted accuracy and truth and cannot be denied. That's why it's an axiom.
Well, no, a person can see. I would maintain that I am unable to avoid having the axiom that I am not alone in my subjective experience, that there's other stuff going on that I don't know about and can learn about, and so on, or maybe can never learn about. So that's my axiom. Now, of course, I could tell you, well, I don't really believe that, but I don't think that that would be an accurate statement.
I think I'm hearing something very important. We have different, it sounds like, we have different criteria for what's included in subjective experience. And I think we have to talk about that. Okay, so we have to talk about, I think, a little bit more of what exactly do we mean by subjective experience. So when I say subjective experience constitutes qualia in the sense thoughts, sensory experiences, feelings, motivational states, notice I didn't say reality. I said thoughts, sensory experience. I can actually name them. They're a finite number of qualia. Sounds like, I think there's some overlap with you, and that certain aspects of reality are part of your subjective experience. Is that true?
I don't know. A certain, say it again.
That I'm sorry, Bill, I got to shut my screen off because my eyes are killing me. But if you need to interrupt me, please just say, Mike, hold on a minute, because I'm not going to see you raise your finger. Yeah, so it sounds like when I talk about qualia, when I talk about subjective experience, I could actually name a finite number. This is exactly what I mean by subjective experience. And notice I didn't include realities as part of that. I said, you know, thoughts, feelings, motivational states, sensory experiences, memory. It sounds like you would include reality or certain aspects of it in some way. You're including reality to be part of your subjective experience.
Well, it is a part of the way I look at things. Now, that's very ambiguous, so that's not satisfactory. The only, in my way of looking at things, the only indication of reality is the ability to predict, to have expectations. And sometimes they'll be right and sometimes they'll be wrong. So that's
okay, but we talked about that already. So
and that's all a part
right,
of an axiomatic assumption about the
right.
view. Yeah.
So, but maybe we could look at the consider axiom in the sense of you know, maybe really, you know, an axiom, maybe the difficulty we're having is that axiom is just another set of beliefs. I believe X is an axiom. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And because axioms are in essence require and necessitate belief, we're in essence doing a circular argument here. We're not right. We're considering axioms something different than a belief, and are claiming that axioms are somehow, you know, necessitate belief, but actually it doesn't make any sense because axioms are beliefs.
Right.
And that's why I feel like we keep going in circles here.
Right.
So
well,
it just comes, you know.
Who is saying that an axiom is not a belief?
I don't necessarily think any of us are, but I think that you know, I think that when we were started to talk about axioms, we shifted very quickly to the idea of what do you include as an axiom, and then we shifted to this idea of, well, it's a belief. It's what do you believe is part of an axiom? What do I believe is part of an axiom? and we started to talk about beliefs and axioms, it started, I think our arguments, both of our arguments started to get weaker. And in considering why that happens, I think it's because we're failing to recognize and admit to ourselves that an axiom in and of itself is fundamentally a belief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if that's true, and an axiom is fundamentally a belief, then I think that has tremendously strong implications for as being supportive of my worldview, which is much more, I think, which is supportive of the argument that things like truth and reality, quote, that we've been using it, is more a function of preference and belief than anything else. I mean, if even axioms are necessitated by belief, then it sounds like everything is a belief.
That didn't. That seemed like a change in meaning. Axiom is necessitated by belief, or something like that. Necessitated by.
It can't be. Yeah. Then it's not an axiom. I think, you know, I think the trouble we're getting into is that we're trying to claim that something exists independently of your belief in it, i.e. axioms, and that's just simply not true. It's here again, an axiom is simply a preference of what you want to claim and believe is an axiom.
Well, I think that you're right in a sense. You're going in the right direction, but by right direction, I mean where it is making sense to me and feeling right and so on. Right. I think that we have to probably clarify once again what we mean by axiom.
So let me be even clearer then, and incorporate the idea of belief. I wonder if you can really do this. I would say an axiom is something. Let me give you more specific. An axiom is a statement that a person considers is accurate, independent of their belief in it or anyone else's beliefs in it.
No,
no,
doesn't sound right. An axiom is a belief. It is a belief. It is a belief that for the person is, well, in a system of logic, one can pose as an axiom anything and then deduce from that certain other things and can conclude that it's not a very good axiom.
Right, but when that statement is considered an axiom, I'm not talking about after the person says, well, that's not a good axiom. When a person instantiates the idea that something is an axiom, what they're saying is that the statement that I consider to be an axiom is true, regardless of my belief in it. It's considered to be accurate without the need for proof, belief. It's just assumed to be true.
See, you're using words that shouldn't go together, like proof and belief just then. That made me feel like you're using words all in a much different way than I am, because you don't seem to
well, then what is an
you don't seem to recognize that putting those two words together did not seem to have meaning.
Okay,
Now,
well,
that may
so all
be.
right. So then let me ask you. Maybe. So then let me ask you this. So that then, what you're saying then, can an axiom, if what you're saying is true, then the word axiom and belief are interchangeable.
No, because there
Okay,
are
then what's different?
Lots of beliefs that are not axioms.
No, I understand that, but they can be interchangeable. And if you have the word axiom, you could replace it with the word belief. Is that true? Do you think?
Yes.
Okay, this is hugely important then. So that means axioms are beliefs. So then the question becomes, what is not a belief?
Well, what is not a belief is itching, is sound, is lots of the things that you list under qualia.
Okay. 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 So then So then you would accept my my statements of axioms in my belief system.
I'm sorry?
Qualia, you would agree with the two statements I have that I claim are axioms in my worldview. The qualia that I talked about.
You've gone back to using the word qualia, which we were going to leave out.
Well, you just used the word qualia. You said the things you termed as qualia.
No,
So that's why. All right, that's why I just said qualia.
Things that I was just referring to, the list that you gave that you called qualia.
Right. So you use the word qualia, so I was using the same thing. So it's like, right. So those things are axioms. That is an axiom.
No. No.
You just said that was the things that you would list. You said the things that you would list as qualia would be considered an axiom.
No.
Sound, itching.
No.
So then what did you mean by that?
Opposite. I was giving examples of things that were not beliefs.
Right. They're axioms. So all right. So okay. Sorry. I see what you're saying. You're denying that.
No.
Right. So then what are they? So if they are not, so then if they're not beliefs, then what are they?
They are sensations. They are motivational states.
Okay. Do they require? So they don't require. Do they? If they're not beliefs, they don't require belief. The existence of these things do not require belief.
Well, I'm a little worried about that because we automatically have the belief that we are experiencing, that what we are experiencing is, quote, there. Don't tell me I don't have pain. I feel it. Would be
Right.
And if I agreed with you, I would be saying, I don't have pain, but I have a strong belief that actually I do if I have pain. So
right. So it seems like the definition I proposed of an axiom was accurate. So it's a statement that I make that I believe is true, independent of what I or anyone else believes. I have pain, period.
no,
I don't have to believe that I have pain. I don't have to believe in it. Your belief in that I have pain is irrelevant. The pain exists. I have it.
there are some places where it goes wrong. I think when you were saying it, but we'd have to go back and you say it exactly the way you said it, and I don't think you could. You could try.
Let me try. Let me try. Maybe it's say a version of it and make the same course of reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of somebody who feels pain, then it seems, all right, so I remember what I said. So it seems like my statement of a definition of an axiom is accurate then. So an axiom is a statement that somebody makes.
No.
That is, no?
No.
Well, so are you saying the axiom is the sound, it's the pain itself?
Wait, I was about to explain.
Oh, go ahead.
No, because the axiom can exist without a person reporting that they have it, that's one of their axioms. So you're equating the having of an axiom with the statement of it. Stating something.
Yeah, that's not what I meant by statement. Well, is that what I meant by statement? Or could that be what I mean by statement? Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think an axiom is used in a well, I think now we're getting into a priori, and I don't even want to go there. Because we've tried to go down that road before. I mean, if you are axioms are used in an argument in a course of reasoning, and it is that part of the argument that is assumed to be true. Therefore, it's a statement. It's a statement, or it can be formed as a statement. Maybe it's this: an axiom is an idea that could be communicated as a statement that is true, that is accurate, rather, so regardless of what anyone believes in it.
You introduced another.
I didn't know I didn't introduce true. Yeah. I corrected myself. I said not true. I said rather accurate.
You introduced another word. The word was, quote, idea.
Okay, let me say it again. Yeah, maybe you could do this. No, axiom is a belief. Well, I think now we're getting into language things, and we're playing games with language. I think we're walking away from the core argument here. So if the idea that we're postulating here is that there's what I hear you say, there's no difference between a belief and an axiom, then why does the word axiom exist? So what is the difference?
Right.
What is the difference between a belief and an axiom?
I didn't say that there was no difference between a belief and an axiom. An axiom is a belief about which the following is true. And then whatever.
True? Accurate, you mean accurate?
About which I would say the following words or something like that. Yeah, my use of the word true triggered a parallel thought in you, and you got switched over to that. I was not meaning to do that. So let's clarify.
That's okay, I do it all the time. Yeah, let's clarify.
In the first place, there are an essentially infinite number of beliefs that a person can have. The belief is a model of reality according to the way that I'm using it in my uh, worldview. A
Okay.
belief is a model of reality, which, if accurate, allows one to predict things, allows one to
Okay.
allows one to predict what we'll find if one goes and looks, or what one will see if one sets up an experimental design, or what will happen if one does a particular thing. And this can be from the extremely simple and automatic and outside of conscious awareness to the highly sophisticated and complicated um, kinds of things that go on in, say, quantum mechanics and the prediction of experimental outcomes, or and so on. Uh, so,
Okay.
so the uh, now among those beliefs, one may have a high degree of certainty or a low degree of certainty. Like, I think Harris Teeter is around the corner. I'm not sure. Or I just know that such and such. And if I saw otherwise, I wouldn't believe my eyes. Those would be verbal statements a person could make that would be trying to convey the degree of confidence in the belief. Okay, so there are, it is possible to have reduced certainty about beliefs. And so an axiom would be something that a person was considering for the purpose of whatever the situation was, to be something that was assumed. So now a person could say, well, I'm going to make this assumption. However, I'm not strongly convinced of it. Well, then it would not really be an axiom. So an axiom would be something like, well, there's no other way that I can look at this. Well, no,
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry. No, wait. No, a person could still uh, give as an axiom something that he or she could question. But what we are talking about is whether there are beliefs, which our worldview is our collection of beliefs about what exists and so forth. Please let me finish. Our worldview is our collection of beliefs about the basic nature, so to speak, of the world. And what I am saying is that that there is no way that I can actually change my belief that I am not alone in the world, that my subjective experience is not the only thing that exists, et cetera, et cetera. There's no way I can change that. So therefore, that makes it axiomatic.
okay.
Now, it's possible that you, with your solipsism, could convince me to change my worldview. I can't imagine it. I
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's not even I think the salient point to our conversation. So if what you just said, what I heard you just say, is that an axiom is a type of belief.
Well,
am I hearing that right?
the word type does bother me.
Is a certain kind of belief?
No, it's, well, it's a belief that I cannot avoid having essentially 100% confidence in.
Okay,
Well,
so if you have 100% confidence in it, then is it a belief?
Very close to, I'm sorry?
If you have a 100% confidence in something, is that still a belief?
Yes. Okay, we have beliefs, and there is a varying degree of confidence we can have in those beliefs. We can feel uncertain, and we can feel certain, or somewhere in between. So go ahead.
Okay. So let me bring this full circle then, because I think I'm understanding what you're saying now.
Uh-huh.
I don't think the way I think that, if you recall, this whole thing started when at the end of the last discussion, I had said that you're claiming that reality exists axiomatically, independent of your belief, and I said no, it doesn't. It depends upon what you believe.
Not independent of my.
So
belief.
now, so now this is a huge, what I consider to be, shift in my understanding of your worldview. Okay, so what you're saying is even the existence of reality requires your belief in it. It doesn't exist. The existence of reality is not independent of your belief in it.
No, that I would not say.
Okay.
If I understood correctly.
Okay. So,
but
if
going back, it sounds like going back, like you were reporting accurately description of my worldview.
Okay. So if that's the case,
if what is
then
the case?
If it's the case that the existence of reality is not independent of your belief in it, okay, then
we're confused.
Let me change.
Reality is not a belief. I have a belief in the quote existence of reality.
That's what I said. I said the existence of reality is not independent. Let me say it in the affirmative,
Yeah.
so it's easier to understand. The existence of reality is dependent upon your belief in that existence. It depends upon it.
No. I wouldn't.
Then you're. So then, are you saying? So then, it sounds like what you're saying is that reality is axiomatic in the sense that you just said it wasn't. You said that axioms are simply.
No.
Yeah, I think you definitely are. No, I could take you through the argument.
Reality being axiomatic, it sounds like you are now calling reality a belief.
I would claim that's what you're saying. You just made that argument.
No.
Okay, well then is it an axiom? It's not an axiom either, according to where you're defining it. Then what is it?
Let's use a remote metaphor. There is a dog, and there is my perception of the dog.
Okay.
Or there is a dog, or I see a dog,
Right.
and I have the belief that the dog is actually there.
Okay.
So there's the dog, there's the object, and then there are the beliefs about it. So reality is an object, so to speak, and then my belief about reality is something else. So I think in your mind.
Well, okay, it's something that I'm asking you to get more detailed on what that something else is. What is that something else? I hear you saying it's something else. I'm asking you to say, what is it?
So, what is something else than what?
Yeah. You're saying, well, it's not a belief. It's not the perception. It's something else. Well, what is that something else?
I don't know what the it is that you're referring to.
Reality.
Okay, can you say it again then?
So reality is not your belief in the perceptions of it. It's not your belief in the existence of it. Reality is something else. What is it?
That which exists independent of any of my beliefs about it or perceptions of it.
Okay, can we use that? Then what do you want to call what you just said? Because that's an important idea that we need to use, and it would be very cumbersome for us to always say something that exists independent of my beliefs about it. So what word can we use for that idea?
Reality.
Something that exists.
Reality.
Okay, let me see if I can incorporate that, because reality has many meanings. That's okay. If you want to use that word, reality, let's see if I can do this. It's going to be very cumbersome to do. I'm going to have to be very, very strict with how I use the word reality now, if that's a definition of it.
And yet it's simple for me.
Okay. Well, I think it's going to be very complicated once I pick apart your arguments. Because you're really using the word reality as I would use the word axiom. I think you're engaging in circular reasoning again. This is why it's hard. Okay, let me go through it again.
Yeah, well, as you pointed out, yeah, that would be a different word usage than what I'm
right, because okay, so let's go into this idea of your definition of reality a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That which exists independent of your belief in it, that is reality. Okay. How is that not a belief?
Wait, let's say belief.
I have to write that down.
Belief about it rather than in it. Belief, because believe in is a word combination that has all sorts of special meanings.
Belief of it.
No,
Reality is about it.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm going to write that down. Reality is that which exists independent of my beliefs about it.
Or perceptions of it.
Okay. That sounds like, let me run this test against it first. Okay, that sounds like your imagination. Something that is independent of my perceptions about it. Can you go into a little bit more detail what you mean by perceptions?
Well, first, let me add that in. Reality is that which exists independent of my beliefs about it, my imaginations of it, my perceptions of it.
About it, my imagination about it.
I'm sorry?
Okay. Okay, I get it. Reality is that which exists independent of my beliefs, imagination, or perceptions about it. So can you explain to me?
No. Again, I don't think you can use the same words, just the three words and commas, and then use one word to go with all three. Reality is that which exists independent of my beliefs about it, my imaginations of it, my perceptions of it.
Okay. Can you explain? I'm going to read back this statement to you, and I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you to tell me what kind of statement this is. So reality is that which exists independent of my beliefs about it, my imaginations of it, or my perceptions of it. What is that?
That's a belief, an axiom.
Okay, so that is a belief. Here we go. So
Well,
here we go. That's
yeah,
what
I'm sorry now, but let's clarify.
it's a belief.
I'm sorry.
Okay, never mind.
That would be, the statement would have to be, I believe that reality exists and consists of that which exists independent of my beliefs about it, my imaginations of it, my perceptions of it.
Okay. Well, this is still a belief.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
okay, so
I believe that.
right, great. So I believe that. This
So I believe
still comes.
well, now I believe that, and then what follows there is that there is something that exists that is independent of my beliefs about it, my perceptions of it, and imaginations of it. So I believe
Right.
that is introducing my belief that is an axiom. It is a belief that I cannot avoid having. I am not able
Correct.
to.
Right. Got it.
I am
Got
not
it. I got. You are not able to.
right.
Okay.
And I
So here we. So
my prediction
I
my prediction would be that you would be unable to doubt it either if you meant the same things by the same words, but I realize that you don't, because this solipsism thing has come in, and so anyway,
and then that's the solipsism. Let's not use those canned terms. The point I want to make here is that this is still a belief.
What is?
Okay. That reality exists, that consists of that which exists independent of my beliefs about it, my imaginations of it, or my perceptions of it. That's just the belief you have. It's your preference. That is very, very different than stating, and I think there's some
there's
reasoning mistakes that we can look at this as your statement again, but I think the mistakes are coming from limitations of language than anything else. But so that's not here nor there.
There are complications. I'm a little worried about preference, because preference implies a certain amount of choice, and I cannot believe that I have choice about that particular belief. So,
well, I can demonstrate that you have choice by bringing a true solipsist here in this discussion that would say that I don't believe that reality exists and consists of that which exists independent of my beliefs. So there's certainly something other than.
What I currently believe is that individual has a thought disorder, not in the psychiatric sense, but that the way that they're thinking about it leads to them making statements that do not reflect the way that person actually lives his or her life.
And that person could say the same thing about you. The salient point in of course, the salient point in what we're talking about here, I think is clearly, it is unavoidable. Well, I should say, integrating belief into everything is unavoidable. Even the existence of reality requires belief. And this goes back to our past discussion. That's what I was claiming during our last discussion.
Terminology, the existence of reality requires belief. That's going off the rails. I think
that naturally, I don't think it's going off the rails. I think that naturally follows from your statement.
No.
How? I'm open to it. Please demonstrate how.
The existence of reality does not require anything on my part.
Because that's what you believe.
No.
You just said that. You said, I believe that reality exists and consists of.
Yes.
You said it's a belief you have.
My belief, but it's not because I believe it.
Well, then, if it's not because you believe it, it seems that no one else could have could make a statement that they consider to be accurate other than the one you just made.
Yeah, that would be my best bet. Yes.
Okay. See,
now
they
make it in alternative ways, or slightly different. If they could not recognize the difference between saying something in one way and saying it in another, the implications of those differences, then they would not agree with me.
Yeah. See, I think this demonstrates what I have said several times in our discussions is a very, very significant liability of your worldview. So what I'm hearing you saying is that you're acknowledging something is your belief and at the same time saying it's not possible for someone else to accurately believe something that I don't.
No,
That's
no, it's
truly troublesome.
that makes it sound like that they could not believe anything that I believed, including where Harris Teeter is. What I'm saying is that this particular belief that I have is, I think, impossible to not have.
You think,
Yes,
you believe that's impossible.
yes.
Your belief does not constitute accuracy.
Now,
That's the whole foundation of my worldview.
Belief does not constitute accuracy. That's a kind of a mixed up use of words.
It's intentional. My mix-up use of that word is intentional. I mean, that's my point. A belief has nothing to do with accuracy. So to say that I believe something and it is therefore accurate to the point where if anyone else states otherwise, they're wrong, is troublesome. And I've maintained several times that's a natural consequence of your worldview that I think is troublesome. And we've just run into it again.
Yeah, but I think, yes, this is the postmodernism business where, well, what's true for you may not be true for me, et cetera, et cetera. What I am presenting to you is that I believe that there is a belief that that we all have.
Okay.
See, I think your mind is elsewhere.
I'm still stuck. I'm stuck on
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I am, because I found it so incredulous that when you made that comment about postmodern business, it was if you were saying that postmodernist nonsense. But I have, in my opinion, I feel that the postmodern perspective has, at the very least, maybe if it hasn't been proven, it has been shown through these discussions to be a worthy worldview, just not on the basis of what they're trying to accomplish in the terms of getting more peace. It has merit based on the reasons and the arguments behind it. I don't think you've ever been able to really shut down unequivocally a postmodernist view. And I think for you to dismiss it so haphazardly after so many times of not being able to shut it down on its merits represents a significant bias you have, I hear, at least, against it, which I think is unfounded at this point, after you've had so many conversations about it.
I understand. I do believe strongly, but not axiomatically, that accuracy of belief, when it has something to do with the quality of our lives, is very important. That when we have inaccurate beliefs, we make mistakes. And we do that all the time.
Okay.
At all levels of our existence, from the individual who is maybe superstitious and has an inaccurate belief about how the world works, to international and beliefs about what the other are doing and what the best, most successful approach would be. et cetera, and all in between. We make mistakes as to why our significant other did what he or she did, and that causes anger to arise and relationship breakdown and so on. Just those are little tiny examples of a ubiquitous situation that
Right.
Currently my belief is now, but I do have some
Well, I
uncertainty
could add another.
because I do believe that there are beliefs that people have that seem to make things better, and that's in the religious area. Um, uh, People, if we assume that there is no human-like entity watching us and doing things for us and loving us or hating us or whatever, if we the people who believe that there is a loving God who is approving and so forth derive a lot of benefit from that. And the belief that there is life after death benefits people considerably, even though many people cannot believe it. And it's up in the air whether there's evidence for life after death, reincarnation, past life experience, and so forth. So I don't claim to have the information about that. And I hope that we continue to study that and so on. But I think that even if those beliefs are inaccurate, they may actually make things better. But
Right.
so there
Oh, I
are,
mean, I agree.
so there are some contradictions. Uh, there is a lack of complete confidence in that. So I don't consider that to be an axiom, but that um, I am not alone in the universe, and that that all that exists is not just me and just my subjective experience. Um, that there's stuff that is independent of that. That's an axiomatic belief of mine. I can't have a belief otherwise.
So yeah, and I think that's a lot of things you said. I wanted to add something else, but I'll do it later. I think that everything you said is completely you agree with, and I think is very admirable. And I think that
Did you say you
if
agreed?
what I agree with it is very admirable, and I think that the only thing that I would encourage you to do is I don't hear, and I think I've noticed this before, that we both have the same worldview, but we take it different places. I believe, given my understanding of your worldview, how I do not feel it appropriate for you to say, if anybody doesn't believe that reality exists and consists of that which exists independent of their beliefs about it, their imaginations of it, or their perceptions of it, they're wrong, is contrary to your worldview. And I would encourage you to rethink that claim.
That what is wrong?
You had, I remember you saying earlier in this conversation that you believe that reality exists and consists of that which exists independent of your beliefs about it, your perceptions of it, and your imaginations of it. And that was as admirable. But then he went on to say,
why is that
and if
admirable?
anyone, it's admirable because to me it's admirable because you said I believe,
Why
and
is
I
that?
admire that.
Why do
Well,
you?
to me it's admirable because there's a lot of people that would say, I think reality exists. They wouldn't add that word I believe. When you add that word I believe, it represents a humility and an acknowledgement of your limitations as a human to know things. And to me, that's admirable. It's admirable when a person.
I was just.
Well, that's my. I mean, I admire that in you. When somebody says I believe, I admire that. But you went on.
That's not the purpose of my saying it.
That's okay.
If I left it out, I would be saying the same thing. The only thing is, it is a sentence.
Try that.
Wait a minute. It is a sentence consisting of words. But that sentence could be something that I did not believe, or something that somebody else believed, or whatever. The I believe that just clarifies that what one is saying is one's belief.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, I think that most people, and including myself at times, do not include the word I believe that. They make statements that they believe, they make statements that they claim do not require belief. They badger other people to believe like they do, and it's a whole bunch of problems. So when somebody says, well, I believe this, I consider it to be admirable. So it's admirable regardless of the way you intended it. I admire that quality in you.
See, you are making one statement after another, after another, after another. And I know you are stating what you believe. You could precede every sentence that you made by I believe that, and it would be exactly the same thing, but it's not necessary.
No, it's
the context.
No, it is necessary. I disagree.
The context generally tells everyone whether the person who is making this statement is making it as a statement of that person's belief. It's just.
I think
Harris Teeter is around the corner. I believe that Harris Teeter is around the corner. It's going to rain tomorrow. I believe that it's going to rain tomorrow.
Yeah, 90. I would not. A vast majority of people should be using the word I believe before almost everything they say to remind themselves that that's just their belief. People do not, as a matter of course, mean I believe X, it's implied.
Yes.
No way. When my mother says God exists, she does not mean I believe it. She means it. When Republicans say Democrats are evil or whatever, I've heard some say that, they're not saying I believe that. They're saying that's the way it is. When somebody says the world is round, not flat, they don't mean I believe that. They say they're saying it's independent of my beliefs.
No, that's what.
No, they don't. Well, I disagree. They do. I don't believe that at all.
When they make the statement, everybody knows that they're making the statement of that is a statement of what they believe. That's what they're making. That's where they're not making a statement.
I agree.
They're not like, for instance, Harris Teeter is around the corner. Harris Teeter is around the corner?
That's absolutely. I don't think.
The statement is the same. The words are the same. The context, namely my inflection, showed that in one case, I believed that Harris Teeter was around the corner, and in the other, that I believed it was not. But the words were the same.
That's I think you are, in my opinion, you are tremendously misunderstanding people, like en masse, in my opinion. There is no way that in my life experience over the 48 years, and maybe it'll be differently when I'll have 80 plus years experience, but in my 48 years on this planet, when people make statements and omit the word I believe, they truly are claiming that something exists like God, whether it's an existential belief or an ethical belief. They are making a statement that the accuracy of their statement is true, independent of not just their belief, of anyone's belief. God exists. Republicans are, like I said, Republicans or Democrats are evil. Let's take an ethical belief. Abortion is wrong. Sex before marriage is wrong. Let's take another kind of belief. Masturbation causes blindness. They say all kinds of stuff, and you read it in the paper hundreds of times every day of things that actually are beliefs. You're right, and I would agree with you. But people, even when you talk them through it, when you say to them, well, isn't that just your belief? They say, no, it's not. Republicans really are evil. That's what they say.
See, you could have been saying, I believe that in front of every sentence that you were using.
Yes, of course I could have.
Right, but you did not. And I knew you were stating what you believed. I knew that you were stating what you believed.
Well, we need to spend some time on this, even though I would agree there's a diversion. Let me see if I'm understanding you correctly.
Okay.
Are you saying to me that politicians let me take an even easier one. Are you telling, let's take an easy one. Let's take an ethical belief. Are you telling me that anti-abortionists, when they are campaigning to legislate abortion out of possibility, are you saying to me that if you speak to these anti-abortioners, they're going to tell you, well, it's my belief that abortion is wrong? That's what you're claiming?
As opposed to what?
As opposed to abortion is wrong, independent of my beliefs in it, it's just wrong?
No, both sentences, I believe that abortion is wrong, and I believe that abortion is wrong, mean exactly the same thing. I believe that is, now the reason for putting I believe that in front of it there could also be another reason for doing that, and that would be to let the person know, quote, I am aware that other people do not have this belief, but the following is my belief, namely, quote.
Right, and I think that was what I was saying before. That's a reason why everybody should be using the word I believe. It's not for the benefit of clarifying for the other person. It's to remind them that it's just their belief, which is why I said I admired you when you added that word, I believe that, before you made your statement. And I think that's admirable. But I'd like to spend a little bit more time on this if we could. I mean,
I did not add that in to say, now I could be wrong, and I realize that that was not the purpose. It was to make it clear what I was saying. It would be like using the proper punctuation such that the meaning was clear.
Right. So, and that's why I called you on this. That's why I said that I think you need to. I think that's why I called you on. I said that, you know, I think that for you to have your worldview, claim your worldview as a belief, and then claim if anyone believes otherwise, they're wrong, completely is contrary, I would say, to the worldview you have. And I think that is simply like almost cognitively dissonant for me. I don't see how that follows for me.
Yeah,
Worldview.
there's some
But
problem here. That's true. There's some problem.
we got to go back.
I'm sorry.
Can we go back to this idea of people for a minute? Bill,
See, I have a feeling
I'm stuck
like
on this.
I know. I have a feeling like I can't get something across, that your mind is elsewhere, that you are rethinking other things. Yeah. And yet,
Let's just, I need to clear it out. I just really want to make sure, because this helps me understand you, so I can understand your point of view. So you believe that everyone considers their statements to be a belief, even if they don't use the word "I believe" in front of it?
No.
Okay, so then what is it that you believe?
Like, for instance, if a person says, Harris Teeter is around the corner, are you crazy? That's not
well, let's just take the other one. How about what about if somebody says, if I ask somebody for directions and they say, Harris Teeter's around the corner.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Are you saying that that person really means they believe that Harris Teeter's around the corner, even though they're not saying it?
Yes. Now, there would be another reason.
Shocking.
There would be another reason for saying I believe that. And that could be to convey to the questioner the fact that even though I'm giving this answer, I'm not 100% sure. Because that's another reason that we use the word I believe that. Well, I believe that, with the parentheses, of course, I could be wrong. So that is another meaning of the word I believe that.
Okay. Now I understand why you don't see the difference in utility between our worldviews. See, I don't believe that at all.
What?
I believe I do not believe that when somebody fails to use the word I believe before their statement, they are still view that statement as a belief.
Oh gosh, yes.
I don't think that at all.
You're doing it all. You're doing it all the time.
I know see, that's not what it means. I know we're doing it all the time. But the salient thing is, does the person who's making the statement know that? And I say they never do.
I say they never do. I believe they never do.
Exactly.
That's
exactly. I'm doing it right now. It happens all of the time, like every second of the day.
You didn't say I believe that, and there was no.
That's my point.
There was no.
Of course, there was a necessity.
No, there was no necessity to. I understood.
There's a necessity for me to say it.
No.
Because when I say I believe that, I'm acknowledging it's a belief and I could be wrong. That's why it's necessary to believe it, and that's what's so problematic with nobody doing it on en masse.
Well, I understand. Yes, I understand this point that you're making, and there I do agree with you. Not exactly with the terminology that you're having, that you have to say, I believe that, I believe that, I believe that, with every sentence that you make, but that letting the other person know, oh, there's another thing that people do that is doing exactly what you are describing. And the person gives a long paragraph, let's say, of all sorts of things, and then at the end says either IMO or IMHO, in my humble opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
See,
so what that but that openness, whether the person is open to the possibility of being wrong and is welcoming uh, feedback and so forth, that is implied in many ways. Tone of voice, way of responding, and so forth.
right.
Not just by saying, well, I believe, parentheses, and it's just my belief, close parentheses,
Right.
da, da, da.
Of course not. Of course, there's other ways of communicating and acknowledging to yourself that this is just a belief. But I think that, you know, most people don't say it, don't give the nonverbal cues that it's a belief because they simply do not believe it's a belief. I think most people, the only exception I've ever had is probably Tim. I don't know his last name. He's both in a company. He's the guy with the beard. He had a beard.
Okay.
He came to Humanianity a lot. So he's somebody that I think mostly personifies. And I remember him saying something like, you know, I don't believe in I can't be certain of anything.
No,
Which
he
I think
said,
is probably is.
no.
What do you say?
No, he would say, I have no beliefs.
Oh, right, that's it. Yeah.
And that,
No,
of
I wouldn't
course,
quite agree with that.
right.
But I wouldn't quite agree with that. But I think the implications of whatever
There is,
statements he makes
there is a,
is,
there is a special reason for that, having to do with the person's understanding of what the word belief refers to.
belief
And
means.
uh,
You're right.
and what they
You're right.
mean is that a belief is a religious belief, and the person is sees religion as a bad thing, mind control, whatever it might be, and has a strong wish to show that they are not being have not been brainwashed by such and such. So they say, I don't have any beliefs. What he would say, I just have suspicions. Well, a suspicion
Well,
is,
yeah, right. But I would claim he's still the closest person I've met who lives this, because I think what Tim means by belief is something that he's certain about, and that's I think the closest way to truly live an understanding your limitations and humility, and that everything anyone has is just a belief. It's to be suspicious and to kind of not lay any claims definitively of the way things are. But I now really understand one of the reasons why you and I have this difference in perceived utility. That I really do believe, seemingly contradictory, you don't believe this, that people really do not consider their statements most of the time to be just their beliefs, just like me right now, and just like you.
well, but the problem is, of course, they know that it's their belief. That's not the issue. The issue is whether the belief is so or not. And what you're saying is that they have what you're saying is that they have too much confidence in the beliefs that they are saying that they have.
Okay, you just added something really quickly. You said, of course they do. Okay, I don't see how you could add that so quickly. How can you say so quickly and so apparently off the cuff, as some assume, like, well, of course everybody disbelieves. Man,
I'm sorry, say it again.
like you had said, well, of course they know it's just their belief. Well, I mean, I have really had conversations, and I'm sure you have too, with lots of people.
You put the word just in. I was not putting the word just.
No, well, a salient word wasn't just. You said, of course they believe that. Of course they know it's their belief. Forget the word just. You said, of course.
By of course, I'm saying, well, no, I know, in quotes, believe strongly that they believe what they're saying. They believe that, they believe what they are saying, but they have too much confidence that what they believe is actually correct.
But I think that you are making it a false assumption that these people understand and use similar definitions for belief that you and I do.
No, I believe the opposite, that people have very ambiguous and varying meanings of all the words that we use, or almost all of them.
So when I would say, this goes beyond simply me talking to somebody casually and just, in an elevator, what do you believe? And it's whether or not they say the word belief or give me nonverbal cues indicating that it's their belief and they could be wrong. I'm talking about really, hour-long conversations where I talk to the person in depth to understand how they think about the statements they're making. As a matter of routine, with everybody in my family and most of my acquaintances, I think probably except you, when you really talk to them and find out kind of how they think about their statements, they don't make the claim that their statements are their beliefs. They make the statements of just the opposite. When I speak to my mother about the existence of God, it has nothing to do with her belief. When I speak to my father about his statement that all people are inherently good, has nothing to do with his beliefs. He means that it's independent of his beliefs. Yeah. And I have had that experiences hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah, but there's a confusion going on that I can hear as I listen to you talking. The question, the important additional concept here, besides belief, is the confidence that the belief is right, or the lack of certainty, the feeling of lack of certainty. That's the second issue. And what you are saying, I believe, if put into my wording, would be to that the optimal thing is to reassure the other that even though you believe the way you do, you realize that you could be wrong. And also, if you're wrong, you wanted to find out. And we're therefore interested in hearing opposing opinions. And that is, I agree, not easily found. There's an unusually high degree of certainty on the part of people who are claiming outwardly certain things that they have a lot of feeling about. And there's a tendency to not want to hear opposing viewpoints and to try to understand why that why people can believe differently. Openness of mind is what that is generally referred to with.
Okay. See, I guess I have what I would say that we're doing here, because I can understand your explanation, and that's how I would describe it too. So if somebody said to me, God, my mother, God exists, it has nothing to do with my belief he exists. And I say, well, what you really mean by that is you believe he exists very, very, very strongly. That's what I claim I believe is happening. But I think that the point that I'm trying to convey here is that no, she disagree. Exactly. I'm saying the exact opposite. We differ with this. She would disagree with that statement. And she has in the past. I've had this conversation with my father and my mother. That's why I'm bringing this to your attention.
Yeah, well, the problem is that we can't be sure of the accuracy of your recollection of the actual words used and what they were meaning at that
no, I
time,
can't.
and what they were meaning at that time in the conversation.
You're absolutely right. I can't be sure, but what I can be sure about, this is not a couple of words that were stated. I have a bad memory, but I can remember. I know in general your worldview. I remember in general what happened and some of the things that were stated in the last conversation, especially with the case of my parents. When I have had, in the case with my mother, I've had conversation with her about her beliefs in God quite a few times. Less so with my father, but also multiple times. So I think I'm definitely able to portray the worldview accurately, which would be, especially in my mother's worldview, that God exists. It has nothing to do with her belief in it.
Well, nothing to do.
And that's what's salient here.
Nothing to do with is a tricky wordage to use at that point. I think that.
No, she didn't use that. I used it. I used it. She didn't use it.
I think that your mother would agree with you that, yes, I believe God exists. I am certain about it.
Right. Well, what she would say, I believe God exists because he really does exist. That's really literally word for word what she would say and what she has said in the past.
Well,
so again, it represents
what that would be. I could imagine a person saying that, and that would be a kind of a tricky conversational gimmick to say that if you believe differently than me, well, you're just fill in a derogatory adjective,
right.
like stupid or something like that. Yeah, I believe God exists because he does. But that is just linguistic creativity and flexibility and ingenuity.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's what we believe is.
I'm just saying that people have all sorts of ways of using their words. People will say the opposite of what they believe, knowing that the other person knows that that's what is happening.
I think adopting your perspective on understanding people like this, I think we're doing them. I think we're being, in a sense, disrespectful to them because we are not taking at face value what they say. What we're really saying is, you don't really mean what you say, or you mean something different. What you really mean is this. I don't think, at least I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable doing that.
I'm not saying that.
Seems like you are. It seems like you were saying, well, there's linguistic trickery, and
Yeah,
your mother may not really, mean what she said she meant.
yeah, it could be that way, but it would be evident.
Could be.
Um,
Well, it could be. But I think to say that's what they're doing is inappropriate. I think that we need to take these people at face value when they say, when my mother says God exists, period. It doesn't matter what anybody. It's not a belief. Okay.
I'm sorry?
I think you have to take it at face value.
What?
When my mother says, or when anybody says, no, God exists, it's not a belief.
Yes, it's their
I believe in it because he exists.
No, it's their statement of what they believe. And everybody knows that.
Not the person who's saying it.
Yes, the person is
wow.
Yeah, and I think that your mother and other people within that culture are very much aware that it's important to believe the right thing. If you don't believe in God, then you'll be tortured for all eternity or something. Or you will be a bad person or something like that.
I recognize it's possible. What you're saying is possible, but I
believe that what you're saying is possible. You should say, I believe that.
Yeah, of course. Well, exactly. This is my point. I'm doing it. You do it. Everybody does it.
You didn't have to do it.
Because I have. No, I should do it. Because it reminds me that I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
Well, of course, I know that.
Yeah, but sometimes I forget. But
I don't think. I think you make statements with very frequently with lots of emphasis and nonverbal communication. Look, Bill, this is the way it is, and you'll shake your hand and so forth, and yet
right. Exactly.
And yet
everybody.
And yet I know that you feel free to express what you believe and to try to make it more believable by accentuating how strongly you believe what you're saying. All of that is conversational stuff.
Yes, but I think that you're kind of even missing the point. I think even with me and you, and I can go back to this thing you said. I believe that reality exists, and demonstrate you doing the same thing. The point I am trying to make is that I'm not going to say everybody because I don't know everybody, but I claim the vast majority of people forget that their statements are simply their beliefs. Would you agree?
Well,
and I simply their beliefs, meaning they could be wrong.
I believe that the kind of analysis of this linguistic behavior is something that, of course, is not naturally done. It just occurs automatically, but we can study how it's done.
It doesn't matter.
Oh. I believe that it doesn't matter.
Forget about whether you add the word "I believe that." That's not my point. My point is that most people forget that their statements are reflective only of their beliefs.
That's what you
agree.
Believe. That's what you believe.
Yeah, exactly. Would you agree?
That part does not concern them, whether it is a belief or not. what they are doing is advocating for their
Wow.
viewpoint.
What do you mean?
That what they are doing is
No, no, it's not what I. No,
advocating.
not necessarily.
See, you're don't even let me finish speaking, and you wave your hands in front of me like I can't
Well,
finish. And
you
what
can
I,
say what you're saying, but if you continue for a while, I have to go back
it's not
and
for a while.
we talked about.
I'm halfway through what I'm saying, and you're
All
waving
right, so then I have to write it down.
your head. It's like you're not letting what I'm saying come in. No, you're blocking it out with your hands.
Yeah, but Bill, because it's like you say. It's very frustrating when you do this, but continue. I got to write it down now. Go ahead.
Frustrating
Continue.
when I do what?
We've already had the discussion that when you build an argument on a postulate that I don't agree with, for me to wait until you go through your entire argument to stop you and say, wait a minute, I need you to clarify this, is problematic because it's difficult for us both to remember what the original postulate was. So now if you insist on going on, then I have to disengage and I have to start writing things down, which you don't like that I do.
Well, no, I agree with you and understand about that. I have the same difficulty. So I do try to let you go ahead and finish, but I will be halfway through the first sentence and put in a comma, and you're shaking your hands and shaking your head without even hearing what the totality of what I'm saying. But I understand what you're saying,
Okay.
that right away in that first half of the first sentence, you may hear something that you feel like I should not be making because it is incorrect in your way of believing.
I need to clarify. If you don't want me to do that, Bill, then I have to disengage and write things down because I cannot follow you. I cannot remember what you said. I cannot remember the postulate.
Yeah, well,
I can still do that. I can listen.
What I'm saying is, I don't have high confidence in it, but I think that if you really tried to just put yourself in my mind, so to speak, or in other words, to try to follow what I was saying from beginning to end, that the result might be different. But but I understand that if I've said something that just does not seem right, then it's like whatever I say after that is not going to be important anyway. So why not just stop me and go back to that? I understand that.
Well, it's very similar to what you do when you go, no. I'll make a statement, you go, no. That means it's like, Mike, don't even continue with this argument because you don't even agree with the postulate or you don't agree with the way I'm defining something. So, and I think given the limitations, unfortunately, we both have with our memory, it's reasonable to do that.
I think that there might be a difference in that when I am likely to do it is when it seems like you are making a statement about what I believe that is something that I do not believe. Whereas I think it is not limited to that on your side, but I may be wrong about that. That's a very subjective experience.
Yeah, well, I claim, whether it's me mischaracterizing you or you mischaracterizing me, or a thesis that I I need more evidence for before you build an argument on it. I have to, I can either kind of listen to your whole argument and then forget about what you said and say, I need you to repeat the beginning part, or I could write it down, or I could just say, wait, hold on a minute. You're saying X, and I need you to clarify X. I don't agree with that. What do you mean? So,
no,
I mean,
and I think this is a kind of almost like a basic problem that any discussion in depth where there's difference of opinion runs into. It's what I am concerned about is the possibility that that when I am presenting something as clearly as I can to you, choosing my words in the best possible way, that it is not going to do any good because your mind has already started shaking your head and your hands and saying, no, I don't go on. I don't want to hear the rest because I disagree with part 1B, or something like that.
Well, let's just say, I think that's a reasonable reason to stop. I mean, considering the limitations you and I both have. If I'm reading, a proof of something and I don't agree with the axiom, the entire proof is thrown out. I consider the axiom wrong.
Yeah.
So the option I have is to let you go on. And I've done it before and say, okay, I need you to I didn't understand what you meant by X, I need you to repeat it. And that sometimes you don't remember exactly what you said because, it's complicated and we both have memory problems. And then if I write things down, I get the impression that you find it insulting because you feel like I'm not listening to you.
Oh, no, not
so.
No, not insulting.
Okay.
No, I'm not reacting as if I have been insulted. No, it is just concern about I am making a presentation, but your mind is elsewhere, i.e., in what it is that you're writing down. And so that my words are going past you. That's what I'm concerned about. But what
I don't think that happens very often.
Well, maybe not. So at any rate, let's every now and then we have to review kind of how we interact with each other, just in case there's some improvements that either of us can make. And anything along.
Would you prefer I type?
I'm sorry?
Would you prefer I type?
No, I would prefer that you listen, but I know that when you hear certain things, it triggers within you a dissonance, cognitive dissonance, with a way that you think or believe or verbalize. And so at that point, whatever I say is going to be blocked out by.
No, that's not. No, that belief you have is completely, I would claim, inaccurate. What's happening is that you make a statement or a postulate, what I consider to be a postulate, and then you say, now, because of this, let me move on to this, and I don't agree with the postulate. So the choice I have is you will make, and I've had this experience before, you'll go on for maybe 5 or 6 minutes building this complex argument, and it has no foundation in my mind because your postulates don't stand for me. So in essence, it's a waste of a limited amount of time we have, the way I look at it.
No, I understand. And that's why I think we should move back to the topic rather than our way of communicating back and forth. And
We used to do this.
yes.
Do you still want to do this?
Well, when you just did it then, why did you do it?
Because I wasn't finished talking. I went like this
Well, I thought I was along saying something and that you were reacting to what I said. Maybe not.
No. I wanted to say, we used to do this. Should we continue to do this? But I've been noticing whenever I do, not whenever, there have been a few times I've done this, you say, let me finish.
Yes.
So this is not having any meaning anymore. So that's why I'm going, wait a minute.
Well, okay. Yes. When you do that, I have to make a judgment, I consider. And that is whatever has triggered his disagreement, that may be cleared up in what I am about to say. I know that that's not likely. Well, it's not likely because my impression is that you're not hearing what I have to say already. But that may not be correct, and I agree that you seem
I don't
to
think so.
be able to recapture stuff pretty well. So
yeah, so should we do this?
well, I'm doing it, but there's a matter of judgment as to what. See, when I formulate something that's going to be this relatively long sentence or two, then when I get to the first part of the first sentence and the finger goes up, it is hard to give up that organized presentation of something that I think would have some potential for improving your understanding of how I am thinking.
Yeah, I'll try that again. We had done that when we first started talking, I remember. And I found those discussions to be very difficult because so much of the conversation for me was hearing you talk and not being able to understand what it is you were saying because I didn't either understand or agree with the postulate. So it was a lot of that conversation was me like waiting for you to finish so I could ask you this question about what you first said.
Yeah.
So then, I'll try that again and see how that goes. But that was difficult. So, all right. So then, I know we kind of moved past. You said you wanted to go back to the original topic in the interest of time. Do you remember what you were saying, or should I kind of recapture, try to?
Well, I don't know where we are right now. Let's see. Well, the most recent topic that we have been focusing on is the issue of how open a person is to the idea that they could be wrong, and how most people do not communicate that, but instead communicate certainty that they are right. And of course, if you look at posts on Facebook, it's like if you don't agree with me, then you have these various pejorative adjectives assigned to you and so on. So you and I both agree that having the open mind is extremely important.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we agree with that. Whether people should always say, preceding every sentence, I believe that, I believe that. Um, I'm in disagreement with you there. I believe that the openness to the idea that I could be wrong uh, can be conveyed in many ways, and is like IMO or IMHO at the end of a paragraph, or the tone of voice, the degree to which one speaks with confidence. No, that's not right. Da, 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 is different than, well, I really can't see it the way you see it. So I need to understand more. And one of the big questions that comes up is such and such. That would be more openness, uh, openness of mind, the communication of openness of mind.
Okay, so you were hung up in this the idea of should you always use the word I believe that? Obviously, I believe that, I believe that, I believe that. They become redundant real quick.
Yes.
That's not that's not the salient point behind me claiming everybody should say that. The salient point is that whether it's they say it in language, nonverbal cues, however it is, people communicate it.
Right.
I
agree.
They are right. They are oftentimes, and this I think where we differ. They, as a matter of routine, communicate the statements in a way that reveals, in their opinion, their statements are not a function of their beliefs, are not dependent upon beliefs, of anybody's beliefs. It's just simply independent of someone's belief. I don't even think you and I have a worldview that can make sense of that worldview because it is so alien to us. But I think that's what I get from people.
Okay,
you don't agree?
I think there's a problem in what you just said, but it's hard. I can't go back and recapture. It has to do with whether you're calling something a belief or not when it is actually a belief. But that's not doing a good job. I can't recapture that. I would have had to have stopped you in the middle of your sentence.
Yeah.
Maybe
let's think of it this way.
Yeah.
Well, what's the litmus test for if something's a belief or not?
Okay. Yeah, here's the problem. I think you're saying that the person is saying that whether the person says it is a belief or not is important, but whatever they say is their belief, and that is understood by everyone at a certain point. What is not understood, or what is understood but is problematic, is closure of the mind to consideration of being incorrect.
Now, I claim that's a good litmus test for judging whether a statement is reflective of a belief or not.
I'll see that. Okay, right there, reflective of a belief. Here is where there's something going wrong, it seems to me, in your way of thinking, um, as to whether you call something a belief or not. Um, and it has to do with uh, if the person is closed to consideration of the possibility of being incorrect, then it's not a belief. But if the person is open to that possibility, then it's a belief. But I don't, it's a belief either way. The issue of closure of mind or openness of mind is something separate. And I'm agreeing with you that that happens, that that is a problem and so forth. It's a matter of terminology here.
I don't think so.
And in my mind, the terminology that you're using has some inaccuracy in it. But it is a deeper utilization of meaning and thought and so forth than generally occurs among people who are discussing something that they have varying beliefs about.
You know, you said that, it reflects a closure, how closed somebody's mind, the closure of someone's mind. The closure of somebody's mind exists on a continuum to having a very open mind, having a very closed mind.
Yes.
Okay. So I think it's, I think having a degree of closure of mind, even if it's very, very, very closed, still represents an idea that they could be changed if only the right situation could be presented to them. They still might have a very closed mind, but it represents a possibility. Okay. Mm-hmm. That still, I would argue, represents a belief. But I think there is a state where that is beyond closed mind, that there simply is no possibility of changing.
I don't.
These people.
Well, that's a judgment. The possibility, the probability, and so forth. That's some kind of judgment you could attempt to make, but there'd be no way of verifying it and so forth through some experimental design. But what's happening is you're saying if it's far enough over on that continuum from openness to the idea that I could be wrong to closure to the idea that I could be wrong, if it's extreme at that closure end, then it's not a belief. And I don't agree with that. I think we're talking about belief and we're talking about the degree of confidence in the belief. It doesn't.
Then that goes back to my original question. What is the litmus test for a statement being conveying somebody's belief?
If they're conveying their belief.
So you're saying it's always happens, regardless. Somebody is always, whatever somebody says or thinks, it's always their belief.
No, not necessarily. Harris Teeter is around the corner.
So you're saying interrogatives are not a belief?
No, I'm saying that if I say Harris Teeter is around the corner, I would be, see, I came to the comma. I came to the comma, and then you started shaking your head and so forth. So let me try again.
I'm still listening to you, Bill. I'm talking to myself. I'm saying it has nothing to do with language. Maybe I should have gone like this.
But I think when you're talking to yourself, you're listening to yourself and not me. That's my worry. But
I was doing that. I was doing that when you had the comma. You weren't saying anything.
Yeah, I was about to.
Yeah, but you weren't saying anything at the time.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, and I know my slowness and uh, time it takes me to find the words and so forth is a problem.
No,
Um,
enough for me. It doesn't bother me too much. It doesn't bother me. I think
okay,
it's good when you talk slowly. It gives me an opportunity to think.
Harris Teeter is around the corner is a way of stating a belief that Harris Teeter is not around the corner.
Right, but this is not about language. This is not about how you say it, how you don't say it, your intonation, or what it is. You can make a statement to yourself that's not conveyed to anyone else. I'm asking you, what is the litmus test for a belief? The belief doesn't have to be stated.
Wait, litmus test that it is a belief. What do you mean? That what is a belief? What a person says?
Let me say it a different way.
Well, is that what you meant? That a person has said something, what is a litmus test to indicate whether that is a belief? Is that what you meant?
Well, that we could use that, but the concern I have here is that you're getting caught up in this language play that kind of takes away from my point. Let's say this. What's the litmus test for a thought that somebody has if that thought is reflective of a belief they have? What's the litmus test?
Well, one litmus test would be how they behaved. People with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, may have thoughts run through their mind that they don't actually believe, and they have to force themselves to act according to what they believe. Now, sometimes what happens is it becomes so strong that it actually becomes a belief, and an extreme along those lines would be a delusion, I guess. But
okay, so
but
let me pass.
litmus test. Your question is what a person makes a statement. What is the litmus test that shows whether that is a linguistic model of something that they actually believe? That's the question you're asking, right?
No, you know what? I think what I'm really asking is what's the nature of a belief? I mean, what makes something a belief?
Okay. And that would be prediction or expectation. When
Okay.
so now it gets complicated because our beliefs, like which way to turn the cap on the bottle, that's something that is automatic and not even put into words. But when we get into more complex things, now I lost the point that I was going to make.
I can comment on what you just said.
Okay.
Okay. So, when you say that, oh crap! I forgot what I was going to say. God damn it. Shit! I lost it. So, okay. So, can you say what you just said again? The beginning part, because I lost it. This is why I want to go like this. But say it again. Now, I bet you can't remember either.
What, the litmus test?
Whatever you just said, Say it again, the beginning part. Right before you said I lost it. What did you say?
I can't remember that. I think we're talking about
God.
your question. Your question is, what is the litmus test for whether something is a belief or not?
Okay.
Okay, now the question here, first we have to ask is, what does the word something stand for? Do you mean a statement? What is the litmus test for whether a statement is a belief or not? See, the problem is,
No, we talked about something after that. We went back too far.
Wait.
Okay.
Some of the difficulty that we're having, I think, has to do with the variation of the variations in certain properties of the belief. One would be the degree to which a person was aware of having the belief. Another would be the degree to which the belief was complex. Another would be the degree to which the person had confidence in the belief, and so forth. So there are various attributes to the concept of belief. But so a litmus test, I don't think there's a good litmus test. I don't think there's a good litmus test I don't think there's a good litmus test for a belief as to which way you should turn the bottle and whether you believe that there was a God or not. Turn the bottle cap.
So we asked another question after the litmus test. We said, well, what's the definition of a belief? And so, but let me talk about, and that's where you said something and we both forgot what the hell we talked about, which is actually funny. But let me comment. Right, and you said something about prediction. Right, and then you went to see what defines a belief is a prediction, and then you lost it. So continue. What defines a belief? I was thinking you to say what defines a belief.
See, the problem. Okay.
If you make a prediction and it's wrong.
Let me give an example in the experimental laboratory with rats. So you put a rat in a maze and you put food to the right. So if the rat turns to the right, it will get food. If the rat turns to the left, it will not, or receives an electric shock. Okay, now we take that rat back and put it back in its cage, and you don't see any change in behavior. There's no change in behavior. The belief exists in that brain that food is to the right in the maze. So when you take the rat back and put the rat in the maze, the rat will turn right rather than left with increased probability. So the prediction of food being on the right, or of some kind of good feeling upon turning right, that expectation is the manifestation of the belief becoming active. So many of our beliefs are inactive in the brain. We have millions of inactive beliefs, which can become activated by the situation at any particular point in time. Like, for instance, if somebody asks you, well, where's such and such? And you hadn't been thinking about it. Now you're thinking about it, and the belief as to where it is comes to mind. That would be one example. So whether a belief is active or inactive, how strong it is, the degree of confidence in it, which may be the same thing, and whether or not it's put into words by humans, because we're talking about animals that do not speak, still have beliefs. They're just not linguistically modeled. So.
Okay. Okay. I don't think, I think everything you just said, well, I would kind of take, I don't think that you can have a belief, we're talking about beliefs again. I don't think you can have a belief. I don't think the rats can have a belief. I think that there's a strong difference.
No.
I think in order for you to have a belief, you need cognitive, higher brain functioning.
No. Now, I understand that many people would say that. Remember that we were talking about the individual who says, I don't have any beliefs, because that individual is talking about religious beliefs. But there's no dividing line. Everything that you're doing right now is based upon your beliefs.
Well, I don't think, I think Tim was talking about more. Tim was talking about more than just religious beliefs. Bill, I got to move because I have a bad internet connection, so I got to get closer to the router. I can still keep going. I don't think Tim was talking about religious beliefs. He said beliefs. Period. He may have originally come up with that idea as regards to, you know, his religious ideology, but, you know, I mean, at least my understanding of talking to him, you know, he just made a blanket statement, I have no beliefs.
Right. I understand. I was giving it as an explanation that a lot of people will, when they hear the word beliefs, it triggers religious beliefs. And people will not realize that they'll not use beliefs in the comprehensive way that I'm using it, even though they do all the time. Like, you know, I believe it's going to rain tomorrow, or I believe I left that on the sofa, or I believe that you are experiencing such and such, and so on.
Well,
I believe that to demonstrate that each of these things was a belief.
See, I would claim that a good definition of a belief is a statement that a person believes could be inaccurate, regardless of the degree of evidence required to demonstrate the statement's inaccuracy.
See,
so there has
is a statement, and I don't agree with that. A statement is a linguistic model of a belief. That's one area where we are using words differently.
I don't think you can equate. I think, let's put it this way. I think at one time doing this was a belief. I just don't remember it. I have experienced this so many times that
doing something was not the belief. The belief was that if you turned, the linguistic model of the belief is that if you turned it to one direction, it would open. So we have identified, I think, an area that is causing a lot of problems in our communication, and that is what we would consider to be beliefs. The example that I gave of the rat turning to the right in the maze being the result of a change in its brain that would be a belief as to what will happen if I turn right in the maze or where food is in the maze, you would not call that a belief. It sounds like.
Well, I think, yeah, one of the reasons why, by that definition, everything is a belief. And
No.
that seems to be, well, wait, let me take that. That's, I've actually said the exact opposite of what I meant. Well, actually, let me go through that. Yeah. So my question to you is, what is not a belief then?
The maze, the cage, the rat, the air. Go ahead.
From the rat's point of view, what's not a belief? You're taking an independent human point of view. That's not the subject yet. The subject's the rat. You said the rat has beliefs. Well, okay, so then what's not a belief for the rat?
What do you mean for the rat? You mean what the rat would
Yeah,
call
what's not a belief?
You mean whether the rat would call it a belief? The rat does not have language. This belief is a linguistic model for something that is true of animals in general. That
how can you show that?
That any animal that can learn anything, whatever they learn is now a belief.
Okay, so that's your definition of a belief. So anything that can be learned is a belief.
If it is learned.
If it is learned. Okay, what's not learned?
Well, rain is not learned. Animals are not learned. Sunlight is not learned. Even among us humans, emotion is not learned. Now, the circumstances under which an emotion will appear is a learned sort of thing. A person can learn to experience fear in a situation, but the fear itself is not a belief.
So you're saying that rain is not a belief?
Correct.
Okay.
Rain.
What about
water?
Okay. Can you say the same thing that an ocean is not a belief?
Right.
Okay. What about what about for my daughter who's never seen, experienced, or knows anything about an ocean?
What
Are you saying it's not a belief? So you're saying it's saying if I'm an adult, so you're saying so you're saying if she goes into adulthood without ever seeing, experiencing, other than like looking at a picture of something we call an ocean, okay, that's still not a belief for her. If I say to her, are oceans real?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
There are objects. Your car is not a belief. Your shirt is not a belief. There are lots and lots of things that are not beliefs. A belief is a change in the brain or nervous system that leads to a predictable change in behavior under certain circumstances, or would lead to it. It doesn't.
It's hard for me to understand how a car is not a belief, because your brain changes significantly after you first experience a car, learn how to drive, and turn the steering wheel. So by that definition of you have, it would seem to me that the car is a belief. Emotions maybe not.
No, you may have the belief that you have a car that you have a car, but the
Right.
car itself is not a belief. It's made of
Why?
metal. It's made of metal, and it's not in a brain.
Well, okay, okay. You're claiming the car's not in my brain. So you're claiming there's something other than subjective experience.
You are inside your car.
Yeah.
Car is not inside your head.
I keep going through this again.
But I think
So you're claiming, right? So you're claiming it seems to be axiomatic. It seems to be without adequate evidence or even an adequate argument that the car exists outside my subjective experience. Here we're back to that again. No? Okay.
No. Now we're getting back into solipsism
Right.
and so on. No, this is just an issue. A bottle is not a computer. They are two different things.
Okay.
The wind is not a computer. They're two different things. But a computer is not a belief. The wind is not a belief. That's not what we mean by the word belief.
Okay. So what do we mean by the word belief?
A change in the brain or nervous system or the mind that see you've
okay, I think I get it. Yeah.
See,
I'm shaking your head like I think I got it.
Oh,
Continue.
well, me like I had already flunked. That was the impression.
Continue.
Okay, a belief is a a modification in a brain or in a mind that results in the ability to predict and therefore to behave differently should a certain situation arise in which the belief was relevant. One could have a belief that was never active. We may even be born with certain beliefs. We may have inborn beliefs. And in fact, it might be difficult to draw a line between what is inborn and what is learned. But a belief is what we're talking about is what I have described. Now, an example: a person, please, a person could say, "Well, I must have believed such and such because look at what I did." So the person would be acknowledging that they probably had a belief that they had no awareness of, but they were concluding they had it because they could see what their behavior was in a particular situation. Okay, go ahead.
I need you to say what you said in the beginning again, because I didn't agree with it, and I can't recall it.
Okay. What a belief is?
Let's start there.
Okay. A belief is an alteration in the mind or brain that results in the tendency to predict in certain situations and thus affect the potential behavior. Now, that may never occur, but if the belief is there and would become active in a particular situation that the person never actually encounters, the belief is still there. It's still
Okay.
there. Okay.
See, here's where. Okay, so, I think you're examining the idea of a belief from a point of view which I don't think has much relevance, at least in what we're talking about here. So you're taking, again, you're taking this third person point of view and judging whether, like, the car exists, the ocean exists, or not exists by looking at a person and looking at the ocean from another point of view outside this person's perceptions and seeing what's going on. That's not the context that I'm asking about. I'm asking about inside of the perception of a person, what is a belief?
Well, you're saying, Bill, I want you to redefine belief as a solipsist. I am not a solipsist.
No, I'm not asking you to do. No, I'm not asking you to do that.
Well, do you have an example?
I'm asking. Yeah, I'm asking. So when somebody says, "I believe X," what do they mean by that? What's the definition of a belief?
Well, when a person says, I believe X, we have to recognize that that may not be true. The person may be saying that they believe it, but they may not actually believe it. So we need to set that aside. And and remember, what a person is doing is engaging in linguistic behavior. Linguistic behavior is behavior that consists of the creation of models using words, sentences, and the rules of syntax, and so forth. So, so the person makes observations about himself or herself and says, well, judging from how I feel inside, what imaginations I have, trying to figure out what I would do under such and such circumstances, or just whether something seems right to me, that would be my belief. And so it's not, the word belief is not something that has sharply delineated boundaries such that there are no uncertainties about where belief leaves off and something else begins.
Right. So you said you use the word, somebody says they convey it as it seems right to me. You also talked about a feeling they have. It feels right. Okay. The implication there, if somebody says it seems to me, the implication there is the possibility that they could be wrong. It seems. That's what they mean by it seems right. It feels right. It seems that way. So I would say that your description is supportive of my original definition. It's when a person, what makes something, when, again, looking at it from the person's point of view, when somebody thinks something or makes a statement, the litmus test for whether that statement or thought is a belief is the degree to which the person can believes that the statement could be inaccurate. If the person has a thought or makes a statement, they're not going to say that seems right. They're going to say is right, and therefore it's not a belief.
Well, all of that has to do with linguistic behavior, and some people speak in different ways than other people do.
True.
So it's like the person who will not use the word belief, but only use the word suspicion and stuff like that.
Well, let me track this really head on.
I'm sorry?
So let's just address this issue head on. From the third person point of view.
What does that mean? Third person.
From outside of anybody's subjective experience.
I don't know. You're
claiming that. Yeah, that you said it. The car exists independent. So, I'm sitting in my car. It's independent of. It's different than my belief. The car is different than my belief.
I'm afraid what's happening is we're now going back into your solipsism and trying to redefine things.
Solipsism again. Remember, I want to remind you, we said it's my worldview and your worldview. It's not solipsism or empiricism. It's not postmodernism.
Okay.
It's my worldview and your worldview.
Okay, getting back into your worldview versus mine and so on. But a lot of it has to do with just word usage, how you're going to use a particular word. So I would use the word believe when you would not. I would say that the rat believes that food is to the right in the maze. You would say, no, the rat does not believe that. The rat has no beliefs. Am I correct?
But yes, because I believe in a certain worldview and you believe in another worldview. It doesn't answer the question. Let's ask the question directly about what we're talking about here. What makes my worldview a belief and what makes your worldview a belief?
That's what a view is, a worldview. It's a set of basic beliefs about existence, about what exists and how it works.
I mean, what makes my worldview a belief is the possibility that, firstly, their belief is inaccurate, and secondly, that other people would have a different worldview that could be just as accurate as mine. It's another way of saying it's a preference.
Yeah, well, that's getting into our different worldviews. And there are things about that I would not agree with, but I agree. I know what you're referring to, but I would not speak of it in exactly the same way. But I realized that conveyed nothing.
That's okay. I get the point that you're talking about, but still, I think we've made statements that our worldviews are a belief, and given your definition, I guess our worldview has made some kind of change in our minds, given your definition of a belief. And okay, granted, I'll just grant that as a given. That still, I think, does not have any kind of. I mean, granted, but it doesn't kind of mean anything. I mean, what is the from my own point of view, inside my subjective experience, the way I think about my worldview, the way I feel about it, other statements I may make that are as a result of my worldview, what in that sense makes it a belief. And I claim what makes it a belief is that I can say, well, that's just my worldview. That's my belief. I could be wrong, and there are others that believe differently, and they could be right, because it's all just belief.
Well, we have, first of all, a problem that came out in full view here just a little bit back, that if we don't clear up, we're just talking past each other. I am saying that the rat learned, that is, developed the belief that food was to the right in the maze. And you said, no, that's not a belief. Okay. So the reason that it is not a belief is what? That the rat cannot put it into words, or what?
No, it's because the rat can't doubt it.
Well, I believe that no, as a matter of fact, you can train a rat that food is at the end of the path, but also electric shock, and the rat will skid to a stop at some distance from that the good and bad goal, and go back and forth and so forth.
You're still saying the same thing. In that case, it's simply that the rat cannot doubt the existence of the electric shock. Doubt is the necessary characteristic for a belief, is my claim. So let me say this. What about this? What about? I mean, you could do the same thing to a human.
Wait a minute. Why could not? If the rat has found food to the right in the maze once, could not there be a certain amount of doubt as to whether the food would be there when the rat was placed in the maze again?
No, I don't think so. In order for you to, in my opinion, in order for you to doubt something, I think you have to have a more complex understanding of time than a rat would have. I think that you have to have a imagination that a rat doesn't have, and a complexity of thinking that a rat doesn't have. I think that a rat and a lot of other animals are going on instinct, which is what you are. Let me finish. It's what you are mistaking for as belief and doubt. So, for example, let me put this into very specific terms.
It is.
Well, let me finish with my example. So, a rat, that electric shock. He goes to the left. He always has food. He has an electric shock. The rat comes to the corner. I don't think the rat says, last time, I had a lot of electric shocks, and it might happen and may not, let me go to the right and see what happens. He comes to the corner, and in the same way that we would feel hunger or we would feel sexual attraction, the rat is simply pulled to do something. And the repetitive mental stimulus causes the rat to not necessarily think or reason about anything or imagine anything. It just causes the rat to go a certain way.
Okay, see. Yeah. I did not maintain that the rat was reasoning. You're saying that in order to have belief, you have to have language.
No, you can reason with that. Well, that's a question whether I think it's language. It's whether you can reason without language. I don't know, but regardless, I think that's kind of irrelevant. The rat does not. Doubting is not a. I would argue. Let's even say the rat. Let's even say doubt is a feeling that doesn't necessarily have to be put into words. I don't even think the rat does that. I think what you're confusing as doubt as just the nervous system not being fully programmed to go to the left for the food. Nothing more than that. And I could definitely say there's no way you and I could argue this. There's no way to show it or even argue it. It's simply reflective of, again, a belief.
do you believe that chimpanzees can have doubt?
I don't know enough about them.
Well, I think that doubt is something that can be very complex for a human who is considering all sorts of things that no chimpanzee or rat can consider because they haven't developed language and haven't thought about things, haven't learned to count or to do math or whatever.
Interesting question. So you know what? I think I can develop some kind of answer on that. I wonder if you could think without some kind of language. So I think that's some kind of language. It may not have to be as sophisticated, but what I mean by thinking and doubt, I think doubt requires thought. I think thought requires some type of symbolic language. And I don't think you can think without language. And I don't think a rat has language.
Okay, then belief is not dependent upon language, and I agree with that. What about the belief?
No, you're making it. You're making a conclusion that doesn't follow at all.
What about the beliefs that that you have that never get into language, like the way in which you turn the bottle cap to take it off?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't. I think that I've said that before. I don't think that's a belief. I don't think that. I think at one time when I was an infant, and I was just learning spatial things. Before I had language, or I don't know if I had symbolic thought, maybe not, but I had learned through stimulus in the same way a rat does, where things go, how they put together. You can learn things without any type of without the ability to doubt anything. So
Okay.
that was conditioning. That stuff was just conditioning.
Okay.
And that's why I maintain you have to be more subtle with your definition, I believe, with regards to what a belief is. You can't equate something you learn by, go ahead.
I agree. We have identified a major source of our inability to communicate with each other with increasing agreement and so forth, because you and I have entirely different definitions of belief and believe. And in my first book, I go over that rational ethical living and the emergence of Homo rationalis in this chapter on determinants of behavior. And it goes into detail about that. But so I don't think that anybody would have any trouble understanding me saying, oh, look, the rat believes that food is to the right.
Yeah, so I would say that let me put it in a nutshell. You can, when you say opening the bottle cap is a belief.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, you say it again exactly. The fact that I turn the bottle cap and what would happen?
No, the belief would be your prediction that turning the bottle cap in a particular way would result in a particular result.
Right. So the belief that I have that, you know, reaching out to the screen and touching the computer is my expectation, I would claim can be taught through repetitive conditioning when you are an infant or, you know, without language. And I would agree with that. So that's similar to the rat.
That's how belief developed through repetitive conditioning.
Not necessarily. So, but I think that conditioning.
Well,
So let me.
I was talking about relatively simple beliefs, not the linguistic modeling of the beliefs.
Right. So that reaching out and that expectation that I have that something is happening. Basically, I'm talking about spatial concepts of where things are in space, and that can be taught through conditioning. So that is so materially and palpably different way of my mind changing than me saying I believe in God.
That's
To
right.
equate both those things, to equate both those things as belief, and I've said this before, is not appropriate.
Okay, and I think it is. But the problem is that what we're dealing with is a very broad set of phenomena. We're talking about that which occurs with rats and other lower animals, and that which occurs with chimpanzees who do not have symbolic language to speak of, and then to humans where we put our beliefs, we model them in linguistic terms, namely sentences, and then we interact with regard to those sentences, and that changes us. Harris Teeter is to the right. No, you've got it wrong. It's to the left. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I was wrong then.
You're still taking that third person point of view. I don't agree. There is no way I would believe any person hearing our worldviews and our arguments would agree with the statement that the conditioning that me reaching out and expecting to touch a computer can be called a belief in the same way somebody says I believe in God. Those are just palpably, from a subjective experience, they are not identical. They are not the same.
Well,
and to call them both beliefs are inappropriate.
One of them is just behavior, reaching and touching.
No, I said my expectation. The expectation that I have, not the behavior, the expectation that I have, that is happened so many billions of times, it's now automatic. Mm-hmm. To call that a belief, at the same time you're calling the existence of God a belief, is so materially different, you cannot use the same word to describe them.
Well, I don't agree with that. And I was in the middle of trying to convey that. In one case, you're talking about belief governing automatic behavior that has been conditioned, reinforced, instrumental conditioning, actually, rather than classical. And then in the other case, you're talking about something that has a complicated history in that it involves it. Okay. It involves the use of words, linguistic modeling. So we learn about God from other people, and we then imagine the entity to be watching us and so forth. And we then have the belief that indeed that entity is watching. It feels that way. Are you, you were frozen there. I think we're getting back connection.
We're getting back now. I got you.
Did you hear everything I said?
I heard what you said. You froze, but I heard. Yeah, I heard it. So again, it just, if that's really your position, then from my point of view, the way I experience life daily, we've gone through this before, in my subjective experience, what is not a belief?
What is not a belief?
Right.
Pain or an image.
Right. Qualia.
An image. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So sensory experiences, memories are. You could argue, to bring some poetry into my sense of self, the fact that I exist. Those are not a belief. Those are not beliefs, right?
Well, no, there's a very problematic part of what you just said. The I believe and I exist.
Okay.
Because we haven't talked about what this thing is that you're calling I. And
all right, forget that then. Let's forget that qualia then. So let's say that's not part of qualia. So my thoughts, my sensory experiences, my feelings, my motivational states, pain, those aren't beliefs.
Okay.
Okay. What are they?
Whatever you want to call them. But I would not call them beliefs. No more than I would call your large intestine a belief.
Wow. So what is different about your large intestine versus your thoughts, your sensory experiences, your feelings, and your motivational states?
Well, that gets into the very complex mind-body problem, and that's not something that we
No.
begin to deal with here.
You're looking at it from this point of view again, which I'm talking about. You're talking for me. Okay, what makes so thoughts, sensory experiences, feelings, motivational states are not beliefs, similar to the way my large intestines are not a belief.
Because I just picked out an object that was inside of your body.
Right. So let's go with it. Let's go with it. Right. So they're all not beliefs.
Everything except beliefs are not beliefs. You name it. Name any object or entity or whatever, other than a learned tendency to expect certain things in certain situations.
Yeah. Your belief, or I should say, your claim that your large intestines are not a belief in the same way your thoughts, sensory experiences, feelings, and motivational states are not beliefs. Can you show how that's not a belief?
Well, you can have a belief that you have a large intestine. You can believe that you have a large intestine. You can believe that you have a car. That doesn't mean your car is a belief.
Why?
Because
you're saying that it. Go ahead.
You can believe that your car exists. The belief is that your car exists, but the car itself is just a car.
I think you're because because one statement's a derivative of another, you're claiming it's not a belief. It's still a belief.
No.
Your belief that, oh wow, wait a minute. Are you saying the fact that I am defining beliefs as only this and not that, or I am defining beliefs as everything that is not a belief, is not also a belief?
Oh, now we're talking about definition. And definition is not a belief. Definition is just the assignment of a meaning to a word. Now, one can have the belief that that definition is the best definition to use, or it is the one that most people agree with, or it is the one that is in Webster Unabridged Dictionary, or whatever it might be. But so there's a definite, from my standpoint, as I'm viewing it, there is a very ambiguous running together of concepts in your mind.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. I can't. It is difficult to show that a definition, because this is, I think, what you're saying, a definition, I'm not talking about a definition, I'm talking about the concept of a definition does not require a belief.
Well, everything requires beliefs, like that I believe that definition is a good thing to engage in, or I believe that definitions should be as precise as possible if we're talking about technical things as opposed to poetic things.
That's not what I mean. I'm talking about, I said it's difficult for me to understand how the concept of a definition, the idea of a definition, the meaning, not the specific meaning of a definition, but just the concept of a definition itself does not require belief.
Well,
you have to believe in that. You have to believe in that concept of something called a definition. It is I am believing that we should, and there exists something that we're going to call a definition, which is whatever, blah, 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 blah. But you still have a belief.
Yes, that would be a belief, but that's a belief about definition. It's not definition itself. I think that's a mistake that I sense that you make a lot, that I keep hearing.
I understand. I understand the point, that I'm examining it.
Like there's a dog, and there's your perception of and beliefs about the dog. So in your mind, the dog itself becomes a belief. No, the dog is just a dog, an animal, but you can have beliefs about it.
I don't agree. I think that the only thing that could not be considered a belief, I think there's two. One is qualia, which is thoughts, sensory experiences, feeling, motivational states. I won't go into the other right now. The things that anything that is not that qualia, of which a definition is one, is a belief, or like I say, it is a belief in the sense that it has no accuracy independent of my opinion about it. Definitions, the concept, not a definition of a dog, the whole idea of a definition requires belief.
The definition of definition is not a belief, but you can believe that definition should be defined, and you can believe that the most appropriate definition is such and such.
I see where you're going with this. There's something, what I'm objecting to is I'm sensing some type of claim of existence outside of a belief in a definition, in just the idea of definition, which that's a step too far.
Well, we do not have a basic agreement about the word belief. And for me, in my worldview, that is one of the most fundamental concepts. And there's no problem in my mind between a rat believing food is to the right and a human believing that God is watching him or her. That's a long continuum of increasing complexity and the addition of things like linguistic modeling of beliefs and learning from other people and the use of the imagination and so forth. We develop so much, we humans, because of our language capabilities. We have developed our ability to empathize with each other and therefore to hear what it's like for other people and therefore to use our imagination and so on.
Yeah.
So it's a very fundamental belief is a very fundamental concept in my worldview.
Yeah, and I could,
as long as you're saying, oh, well, no, some of what you're calling belief is belief, but others is not, well, then we speak different languages.
possibly. I understand, and I can accept that looking at views like a continuum. I just think that what I'm objecting to is if you're going to do an analysis of beliefs and really get into the nitty gritty of what beliefs are and definitions and whatnot, you can't kind of compare and use the same reasoning as you do, or the same argument, to substantiate beliefs reflective of a belief in God, or a belief that comes about as a result of a rat conditioning in a maze. They are so palpably different that you, again, to call them even on the same continuum is I think it's just a huge stretch. And I don't think, and again, I think this goes into.
I know that there's a huge stretch, but I think it's entirely appropriate. It's
Maybe.
It's not a stretch. It's not. See, what we're doing is taking two ends of a continuum. At one end of the continuum is the rat learning to turn right in the maze, and at the other is the human's belief in God. And because they are so drastically different, we're thinking, oh, they can't be the same thing. But they can be the same thing manifested in different ways.
No, that's not why I'm saying that.
We humans do stuff that other species do in our own human ways, and our own human ways are extremely complex. Look at what we're doing right now.
That's not why I'm saying that. I don't object to that because, we're so different than rats, and I can't see how you could be the same. That's not why I'm objecting to that. I'm objecting to that because I claim that the most the most effective and most accurate way of understanding human behavior and human psychology and human subjective experience is to always consider it from the point of view that somebody has, that we're talking about, which is a person. And if you're going to try to explain what a belief is, then maybe you can go so far back as to talk about a human baby, But to start talking about and bringing in rats and or amoebas or microbes or viruses is kind of like not it's almost completely, it's not almost, I think it's irrelevant to the conversation at hand, which is trying to understand human, psychology and behavior.
Well,
and how we think.
I'm trying to understand it in the most, in a way that is consistent with all that we have learned about nature and so on. Now, viruses, as I understand it, do not modify their behavior according to learning. And so I would not consider viruses to have beliefs. And I think the same is true of amoebas. But
you know what? That's not true.
But okay, maybe that's not true. Maybe in some way amoebas learn to do stuff. I would be very surprised, but
all right. Do you know CRISPR? Have you heard of that?
yes, of course, but I don't know much about it.
Okay, granted, I'm not any kind of biologist or anything, so I might be talking out of hand here, but my understanding,
epigenetic change.
No, CRISPR is the ability, is a technology that allows us to specifically target a gene.
Yeah.
To change it.
But I thought you were going to relate this back to belief and so forth.
Well, I am. And the idea, so I think given your definition of a belief, not only does, a virus can indeed have beliefs because of the way CRISPR works. What they do with CRISPR, because in essence, the virus or whatever vehicle is making the cut that they're training is having a change of thought. I mean, that's how CRISPR works. It's a fascinating technology.
I don't agree with that.
Well, according to your definition, it is. I mean, there's a change. Well, let me ask you a question. What's different about the virus versus the rat?
What I'm talking about is learning both classical and instrumental conditioning.
Right. So that's how CRISPR works. That's my understanding of it, at least. It's very complicated, and it has to do with all kinds of weird stuff. But apparently, put it in a nutshell, our bodies, when there's damage, this is the etiology of CRISPR. When there's damage to our genetic code, there's some type of mechanism that figures out where to cut the gene and replace it with a good DNA chain.
Well, here.
So that's the behavior of this vehicle.
Okay, what's happening now is we are moving into the area of the mind-body problem, because you are assigning agency to the genes, and so there's a question as to, agency is a supernatural phenomenon. It's not in the natural sciences. So the natural scientists would only metaphorically say that the gene had decided to do such and such. But
well, does the rat? Well, instead of making the same claim for the rat, that's my point.
No, I'm talking about. Well, yes, of course, the rat. We can look at the rat as just a bundle of atoms that are following the laws of the universe. That's true for us. Mm-hmm. Or we can look at ourselves as agents and able to make decisions. you and I were able to make a decision to meet at this particular time.
Yeah.
So, but that could
I
be
grant it. I got what you're saying.
the forces of the universe, or it could be
I,
the agency. It can be looked at either
right.
way. It's the mind-body
You're,
problem.
you're making an awful convenient, I claim, you're making an awful convenient differentiation by assigning agency to a rat and not agency to a virus or whatever vehicle that the CRISPR works. I would claim for no other reason than supporting a certain point of view you want to have with regard to beliefs. What is different?
The concept of agency is not relevant to the concept of belief. That's why I said, and you didn't probably notice it. Please let me finish. That's why I said.
I'm listening.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That's why I said a change in the brain or mind. So I was using the natural worldview and the supernatural worldview, because the mind is a supernatural object.
I still don't, but you're claiming there's a change in mind or brain on the basis of behavior demonstrated. So the test of whether the change occurs is behavior change.
That not necessarily, because as I pointed out, the belief can develop within a brain and never manifest itself, never be evident.
I got that. But in the case you're talking about with the rat, the way you're gauging whether there's a change in the brain or mind is through witnessing behavior change.
That only has to do with testing to see if belief has occurred. That doesn't have to do with what we're calling belief.
Okay, so then how can you, wow, this is interesting. How can you claim that a change in the mind has occurred without witnessing behavior?
I could claim that and have no evidence for it and not be able to demonstrate it.
Then what's the basis for the belief then?
It's that we just see the operation of belief in an overwhelming way. We see animals learn to do this, that, and the other. We see humans learn to do this, that, and the other. Right. Learn means acquire beliefs. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that those are in words. So a lot of the beliefs that we develop don't involve the use of words, like learning how to tie our shoestrings or put on our shoes. We get good at it. We learn how to do it. We have beliefs about if our fingers go in a particular way, then we end up with tied shoelace.
Yeah, I think again, to equate the complexity, to characterize a statement that somebody, not even a statement, but let's make it a statement. To characterize a statement that somebody makes about a belief in God, well, let me even change that. To characterize a statement that somebody makes about the existence of God with a statement that somebody makes about their expectation that when they reach out, they'll touch something, as both being beliefs, strikes me as counterproductive to understanding and explaining kind of humanity and what it means to be human.
Yeah, okay.
I don't get it.
And
hugely different point of view.
Yeah, that's right. And I would recommend to you that you start thinking about it, because I think it is very helpful. Now, again, the chapter on rational ethical, in the book, the first book one, on determinants of behavior, has a lot of this in it. And so that might help. We humans have not accomplished a real strong ability to understand each other and to develop the same beliefs and so forth. And I know most people say, well, we never will. I believe that we can, and it involves doing like you and I are doing, but to a much greater extent, and it being a lifelong task, not something we just do once every week or two or three.
Yeah. See, what I claim you're doing with regards to belief is you are seeing similarities in behavior and outcomes and expectations, and you are creating, I think, appropriately, a superset of this thing called beliefs. The problem is that this superset is so encompassing that it doesn't provide the proper vehicle to examine certain aspects of the idea of a belief and beliefs and what they are, and looking at that concept of beliefs. You have created such a large superset that what you really should be doing is say, okay, yes, there might be a superset of beliefs, but the members of that set are certain members are so different from others that there needs to be a subset within that superset.
Well, there's no problem about subsets. In fact, I'm
not finished.
Sorry.
And only apply those subsets to certain situations, because they certainly don't apply to others. Continue.
Well, I do have subsets. I say there are beliefs that a person is unaware of, and beliefs that a person is aware of. There are beliefs that are not put into words, and there are beliefs that are put into words. There are beliefs that are inactive in the brain, and there are beliefs that are active in the brain at a particular point in time. And furthermore, I'm using the word belief consistent with the way that it is used by our culture, because people say, well, I believe that you have to turn the cap to the right to close the bottle. I must have believed that I was going to be swiped by that car, because look at what I did. Lord knows what I believe about such and such. I believe that the election will turn out in a particular way. I believe that the universe is actually just one of an infinite number of universes. I believe that, so we use the word believe and say, I believe that for all of these things, and that chimpanzees believe that if they treat their peer well, that will be reciprocated. Or I believe that the rat believes that if it turns right in the maze, it'll get food. That's the way. Nobody's going to have any difficulty understanding any of that.
So you're defining your subsets based on characteristics of a belief only, and I think that's way too narrow. You need to define your subsets on way more than that. I think well, for example, you should be defining your subsets based on a person's subjective experience of different types of beliefs. You should be basing these subsets on the opportunities that different types of beliefs present a person. Those kinds of things.
Hey, what's an example? Give an example.
An example of not basing it on a characteristic and more of a subjective experience is my belief that when I say I have a belief in, at least according to your definition of belief, I have a belief in, people say I have a belief, I experience the kind of the existence of God as a belief. I believe in God or I don't believe in God. That is experienced by somebody in a certain way, which is very, very, very different than the expectation they have that when they reach out, they're going to touch, something or a laptop or whatever it is. Those are so subjectively different for a person. That is a necessary subset. In addition to that.
Well, can I respond to that?
Yeah, let's respond to that one first.
I think you're talking about the fact that beliefs, and this is covered in the book also, that beliefs have an influence on how one feels. So if one believes that God exists, one is going to have a certain feeling if indeed they believe that what they're doing is what that entity does not want them to do or wants them to do, and so forth.
Well, no, that's my second claim, that you need to define beliefs based on the opportunities they present, which is what you just said. Right. So if I believe in God or don't believe in God, it's going to motivate me to certain opportunities will present themselves for me. One is the opportunity for me to go to heaven. One's to go to hell. One is, that kind of thing. But, I'm talking about, you kind of missed my point. My first point is defining these subsets on the basis not just of the characteristics of the beliefs themselves, but whether they're conscious or subconscious or attributes of the beliefs. Talking about how they're experienced by the person. Again, the person experiences what you claim to be a belief, the expectation. I expect that when I reach out, I'm going to touch my laptop. That subjective experience is so different than somebody saying, when I die, I expect to go to heaven. To claim both of those as a belief without creating a subset that reflects the real difference in the subjective experience between those two events is necessary in order to understand human behavior.
Okay.
This is what these conversations are about.
I have no problem with characterizing beliefs in all different ways, different subsets and so forth. That in no way means that this universal way within English-speaking countries of using the word belief is carried out. Yes, I agree that the belief as to what will happen if you tap the screen in a particular place is different than, in many ways, in a number of ways, than the belief that there is a God watching you. They are, yes, but they all have to do with this ability to make certain predictions. And the interesting thing you could ask me, which would be a challenge, would be, well, what are the predictions belief that a God exists? Well, that would depend a lot upon how they had acquired their beliefs, through whom, and what, why they had the beliefs and so forth. It's part of our tribalism and our tendency to band together with loyalty to certain belief systems and so on. But actually, people do feel certain ways because of their belief about the nature of that entity. And those who believe that the entity is moody and angry and punitive are going to feel different than those who believe that it's the entity is all loving and so
Right.
forth. So
See, I think you're using the same circular reasoning here by incorporating the idea of prediction that you were doing with reality. You're just replacing it with belief.
what's circular?
Well, I think what's circular about it is that somebody's going to kind of go through it very quickly. It's kind of on the tip of my tongue, but I'm kind of sensing it's kind of circular-ish. If you remember, I was saying that you're assuming, you had assumed that reality exists on the basis of a prediction you make that something will happen. And if that prediction is right or wrong, that provides some kind of evidence that reality exists. And I said, well, wait a minute, you can't do that because you're assuming reality exists in the first place.
Right.
Okay.
We've covered that, and I changed.
Right. So in that way, but I think you're doing it here also.
Well, how am I doing it here also?
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that I have a belief in X, and my ability to predict, because I've heard you use that word predict, with regards to the outcome of my belief, gives me data about the accuracy, of my belief. So here again, I think you're assuming the existence of the belief and then using a prediction to show that your belief was accurate or inaccurate to begin with. So it's a similar circular reasoning, it seems to me.
Here there is confusion again.
I gotta go in like 5 minutes.
Belief.
I gotta go in like 5 minutes, but continue.
Okay. There's the belief, and then there's the degree to which it is accurate, often undeterminable. But the accuracy of the belief is different than just the belief itself.
Okay.
So in what you were saying, I got lost, felt like it was non-relevant relatively early in what you were saying.
Look, I don't think it is, because when you're saying that the existence of a belief is different than whether it's accurate or inaccurate, I would agree with that, but you're still axiomatically claiming that what could be false or true is a belief. You're still making that assumption.
I did not follow that, but remember that I have accepted the idea that my worldview, what we are talking about, is essentially axiomatic in that, well, the part of it that there is a reality that is independent of the person's thoughts, about it, or beliefs about it, or perceptions of it, and so forth. That's pretty axiomatic. And then the issue of determining the accuracy of belief, that's a separate issue. And I'm not sure that what you would say was axiomatic about that. No, I would say that it's pretty much a part of my axiomatic worldview that our beliefs can be accurate or inaccurate. And when they are inaccurate, we make mistakes because that which happens is different than what we expected or predicted.
Yeah, I agree. On that note, I feel like we were all over the map today. I feel like we had do you feel that way too? I felt like we had a very disjointed conversation today. What do you think?
I think in a sense we did, but what we did was to uncover a major linguistic difference, major difference in our languages, such that it explains to a certain extent why we have such difficulty coming to agreement. You're speaking one language, I'm speaking another. And
with regards to belief, you mean?
Yes. What I consider belief is not what you consider belief to be.
I would agree with that. And we had talked about beliefs, I remember, very extensively in the past. Maybe we revisit it again next time.
Yeah,
we must have forgotten it or something.
Do you think you might reread that chapter?
Which chapter is it?
It's in book one.
Down.
And it's the basic concepts, determinants of behavior.
Well, yeah, that might be a good opportunity for us to accelerate, for me to get more familiar again with your point of view and the details of it. So yeah, I'll be able to do that by next time.
Okay.
All right, Bill. I'll speak to you later. Stay healthy, huh?
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Humanity, now we all can see. Humanity, how much better we can